guys, I'm Janet on occasion, and today we're going to do another campaign lore play, so that should be fun. So as you can see, we're still at war with Nordland and Middenland, and basically we're just trying to take over the north at this point. So I'm besieging Middenland, Middenheim, which is, I think, Middenland's last town at this point. So yeah, it's not looking great for them. But those walls are pretty damn good, and we're going to talk about Middenheim, because they do have a lot of defences. And, you know, a lot of, pretty sturdy garrison and all the rest of it. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about mostly today. So let's get to it. So I don't think you can really talk about, a city without talking about its ruler. Especially in a, fantasy setting, because they're the ones leading the charges. Or, cowering, I guess. But that's usually, it's made a point of pointing out that they're cowering. And that's usually, when a big hero arises, because, it's all about heroes, isn't it? Sort of fantasy worlds. So, anyway, it's the Todbringer family, right? So, Graf Boris Todbringer, So, unlike many nobles in the old world, Graf Boris Todbringer has not surrounded himself with an extended family of aunts, uncles, cousins, and the like. His wife is long dead, and his immediate family consists only of his daughter, Katrina. He did have a son, Stefan, who was troubled by illness and died a few years ago, according to some, as a result of some plot by cultists. His only other offspring is illegitimate, a son called Heinrich, whom he formally recognises as his own and permitted to use the family name. However, Heinrich's birth prevents him from succeeding his father as an imperial elector and ruler of Middenheim. Because of this, a great deal of diplomatic activity is focused on winning the hand of his daughter, called the Princess, by Middenheimers, even though she is not officially permitted that title, on behalf of young nobles across the old world. So far, no suitors have been found suitable. So that's interesting. So he's got that son. I'm assuming that that's the same son that lives in Karabberg. I can't remember what the palace is called, but in the palace that, just where the Todbringers hang out if they're in town. Yeah, you might remember I mentioned it a couple of episodes ago. Anyway, so there are some more sort of military. There are sort of three main sort of military organisations in Middenheim that are run by the city rather than I'm not counting the knightly orders and things in this, and they're led by the Midden Marshals. So I'm going to get to this immediately. So, as a powerful city-state, Middenheim maintains considerable military forces, and the bulk of these fall under the command of the three Midden Marshals. The Midden Marshals are Maximilian von Genscher, Johann Schwermuth, and Ulric Schutzmann. Von Geschner commands Middenheim's walls and gates, along with the city garrison, but not the watch. Fixed artillery pieces, the city militia, and all other defensive forces. Schwermuth commands the standing army of Middenheim, while Schutzmann commands the city watch and is responsible for keeping the peace within the walls. So, I guess Schutzmann is kind of like a police captain, but a fantasy police captain. So as the events of Paths of the Damned, that's the campaign that this book is, a source book for, really. So you can assume that if it says, as the events of this unfold, it's after the Storm of Chaos, while the army still hasn't come back from chasing a Farkeon, basically. So as the events of Paths of the Damned, Ashes of Middenheim unfold, only Schutzmann is in the city. Graf Boris has assembled a great force from the army, the militia, and the knights, and several allied contingents that assisted in the defence of the city, then set out to chase down the forces of chaos as they withdraw. Schutzmann has been granted full ducal power, making him the unquestioned ruler of Middenheim in the Graf's absence. Unfortunately, he only has the city watch at his disposal, along with a few artillery crews defending the walls and gates. So if you want an idea of how, the defence of Middenheim is going to go in this campaign, just assume that all the forces that I'm talking about, are actually home. That's probably your safest bet. Because this is the most sort of, what's the word? Definitive. It's the most definitive sort of explanation of, Middenheim. So, so you're going to have to, use your head a bit. So, the standing army. So the army of Middenheim is currently away from the city, hunting down the ragtag remnants of Archaon's Chaos forces, who haven't turned up yet in this campaign, obviously. Like all the armies of the Empire, it is a diverse and versatile force, with a wide range of infantry, cavalry, and artillery units at its disposal. So, obviously we've spoken about how, sort of, the Empire and, the different provinces, build their armies, the state troops, with their very versatile regiments and their detachments to back up each regiment. So, it allows them to overcome, massive monsters and all the rest of it, despite just being puny humans. So it's that versatility, and Middenheim is no exception to that. So then there's also the city garrison and the militia. So while the army's task is to take the field against Middenheim's armies, the garrison is charged with the defence of the city itself. Like the army, it includes a wide range of troop types, with a heavier emphasis on artillery and missile-armed troops, crossbowmen, handgunners and the like, to decimate attackers from behind the safety of the city walls. The militia is a more ad hoc force, recruited from among Middenheim's citizens and serving only when needed. Many Middenheimers who have previous military experience join the militia, which is organised by city districts. Each militia troop is charged with the defence of its own home district, in the event that the city walls should be breached. In addition, the militia can be called upon to assist the city watch in an emergency. Although the garrison and the militia do not normally leave the city, a large number of them are currently in the field with the army and the knights. Only the crews for the fixed artillery on the city walls have remained behind as Middenheim field the largest possible force to secure the surrounding countryside and to avenge those who fell during the city's defence. So again, it's good to note, sort of cities in the Warhammer world, they rely a lot on militia to keep them safe, and so that does sort of excuse the fact that there are, innumerable monsters all over the place, and everyone's constantly in danger. Yet, they manage to actually feed everyone and run cities, like modern cities. A lot of it is because a lot of people will be part-time soldiers, and they will be called up upon, but things still have to be moving, so they can't all be professional soldiers, the cities still need to work. So I think that's, I think you can look into that a bit more than, just, oh, they got some more soldiers. The fact is that people will rally to try and defend their cities, because in a world such as this, it's kind of important. There's a lot of dangers. So, I like to read into that a bit more. So then there's also the City Watch. So the City Watch is the main armed force left in Middenheim at present. While the army is charged with fighting in the field, and the garrison defending the city, although for now most of the garrison is in the field alongside the army and the knights, the task of the City Watch is to maintain order and apprehend criminals. During the siege, however, the Watch fought alongside Middenheim's other armed forces, and did so with distinction. Obviously, the City Watch, they're the police force, basically, right? So they're going to be dealing with crime and all the rest of it, but, it's a sort of a fantasy world, so of course they're all going to be, armed with swords and things in order to stop, rebels and things. And also, you've got to understand that in Warhammer, a lot of crime is going to be sort of cultists and, religious fanatics, for the dark gods, as well as, all the usual sort of thieves and robbers and whatever, murderers occasionally. So again, the police are going to be fairly hardy in a Warhammer setting, aren't they? Because they've got to be. Because, crime is worse. There's more, evil and magic and, crazy going on. So, again, they're going to be very useful, in the defence of a city. So then we have the Knightly Orders. So, again, very important for Middenheim, because, it's got a lot of sway, with two orders of knights in particular. So Middenheim is home to two orders of knights, both of which operate independently from the Midden Marshals. Both orders are currently away with the Graf. The Night Panther. The Knights Panther form the personal bodyguard of the Graf and acknowledge him as their sole commander. In practice, this causes few problems, since the Midden Marshals act on the Graf's commands as well, and he is a gifted military commander who is well able to coordinate his various forces to good effect. Knights Panther are usually mounted on war horses, and are distinguishable by their tall helmet crests topped by the image of a beastman head, and by the saddle cloths from which they draw the name of their order. According to tradition, each squire must hunt down and kill a great forest cat single-handed, placing its skin beneath his saddle when he is knighted. So very similar to the Knights of White Wolf there, in terms of tradition. So they go and hunt a cat, and the Knights of White Wolf obviously hunt a big wolf. So that's novel. So then we have the Knights of the White Wolf. Obviously I have discussed these two guys, but it's sort of important to give a full sort of look at how Middenheim would defend itself. So the Knights of the White Wolf are Templars of Ulric. According to ancient Teutogen tradition, and Teutogens being the people that, you know, became the Midlanders. You know, they were the people who moved into the area and claimed it. Well, actually, they fought off the, what are they called? The Teutones. Yeah, they kicked them out of it. The Teutones ended up in the wasteland. But anyway, according to ancient Teutogen tradition, the High Priest Ulric is expected to raise and maintain his own force for the defence of the Temple and the Faith, and to honour the Wolf God in battle with their valiant deeds. The Grand Master of the Order of the White Wolf answers to the High Priest, rather than the Graf, but the palace and the temple have traditionally worked well together. The Knights of the White Wolf are armoured when they ride into battle, but do not wear helmets. Many of them wear wolf-skin cloaks around their shoulders. Their favoured weapon is the Great Warhammer. So, yeah. So, Knights of the White Wolf, you know, we talked about them before. But, of course, the High Priest, Ulric, Ulric being the title for the, you know, the High Priest of Ulric. Yeah, that's based in Middenheim. You know, the High Temple to Ulric is in Middenheim. So, of course, the Knights of the White Wolf are going to be defending that temple with their life, and that means defending the city as well. So, you know, they're going to be pretty vigilant in defending the city. So, again, that's another great sort of asset that Middenheim has. You know, is under siege. Which, if you're looking at the video now, you'll see that it is under siege, and this is a great custom map from the you know, that custom map pack that I've mentioned in the past. Absolutely fantastic. I don't think it's entirely representative of Middenheim, but I think in terms of gameplay it makes a lot more sense than other custom maps I've seen, because it is actually something you can attack, whereas in the lore it's just a massive friggin' mountain. It's just got a few causeways, well, 3 I think, you know, in order to get there, but you know, this it doesn't have the sort of feeling of a giant mountain like it's supposed to, but it makes it more playable. So so if you think this is a perfect representation of it, I don't think it is, but it's perfect for, you know, a game where you've got to actually be able to attack the place. So I think it's a really cool map. I'll do a few fly-throughs and things of it, so definitely have a look at it. It's just beautiful. So anyway, let's move on. So there's also the Teutogen Guard, named after the you know, the Teutogens of old. So the Teutogen Guard is an elite unit within the Knights of the White Wolf and forms the personal bodyguard of the High Priest. They normally fight on foot, but are otherwise equipped identically to the other knights of their order. So they're seen as, you know, the elite guard, and you know, the elite guard of the temple and everything. So yeah, again, not something you want to mess with. So they're going to be very good at you know, keeping people away from the temple and away from the city. So pretty cool. So then you've also got the government as well. They're the Law Lords. So much of the civil government in Middenheim is in the hands of a small group of men, the 3 Law Lords: Eberhard Richter, Erich Karlsbad, and Hans Brucker. The Law Lords traditionally dress in grey robes, adorned by gold brooches in the shape of a balance. So that is actually the sign of Verena, sort of, you know, the god of laws and whatnot. So that's pretty cool. So the Law Lords are still in the city, supervising the civil government and advising Commander Schutzmann on matters of law. They generally keep themselves distant from the city's population, avoiding personal entanglements that could lay them open to charges of bias or corruption. Since a scandal several years ago led to the replacement of all 3 Law Lords under circumstances that are still not clear, the current incumbents are extremely careful to make a show of integrity and impartiality. So that gives a bit of an impression of, you know, some of the politics going on in, you know, in Middenheim. So, you know, there are people in charge of trying to get all this stuff working, which is kind of cool. Next, of course, you've got the priesthood. So, you know, that's going to be a big deal. Obviously, Knights of the White Wolf, you know, are a Templar order. And, yeah, for a warrior god, so you assume their priesthood is going to be pretty, well, fighty, I suppose. So, so, as might be expected, the most influential priest in Middenheim is the High Priest of Ulrich, who goes by the traditional title Ulric, which means son of Ulric in the ancient Teutogen dialect. With a combination of his spiritual authority as High Priest and his military power as Supreme Commander of the Knights of the White Wolf, he is second only to the Graf in importance. and there are many devout followers, who would rate him at least as the Graf's equal. At present, our Ulric is leading the Knights of the White Wolf in the field, and Deputy High Priest Klaus Leibniz is in charge of the temple. The Cult of Sigmar has taken great pains to maintain a strong presence in Middenheim, despite, or perhaps because of, the deep rivalry between the more devout followers of the two deities. As the patron deity of the Empire, the presence of Sigmar's temple, the second largest in the Old World, reminds Middenheimers of their ties to Altdorf and the Emperor. They do not always appreciate this reminder. The chief priest of the Temple of Sigmar enjoys the resounding title of High Capitular, and in the cult hierarchy is second only to the Grand Theogonist in Altdorf. Next in importance is the High Priestess of Verena, who is sometimes called upon to consult with the Law Lords in matters of justice. The priests and the priestesses of other cults have prestige according to their rank, but are not politically powerful. So obviously I mentioned, Verena being a sort of god of law and things, and so that explains their golden brooches with the balance, displayed on it. So yeah, so there you go. But also, Cult Sigmar, this is the second biggest temple to Sigmar, and again, another warrior god. So there's going to be a lot of warrior priests knocking around, things like that. There's a lot of power here, is what I'm trying to get at. So there's all that sort of organised religion going on, but then there's also some more mental stuff. There's also a group of people called the Wolfkin. So think flagellants, okay, but for Ulric. So the Wolfkin are a type of zealot. Zealot being actually a class in the game, which I think why they specifically say zealot, associated with the cult of Ulric. Driven to near madness by hardship or despair, they find solace in the contemplation of their warlike god, and see themselves as the living instruments of his vengeance. A large force of Wolfkin currently accompanies the armies of Middenheim. They are not formally a part of any force, army, garrison, or knightly order, but their religious devotion leads them to gravitate to our Ulric and the Knights of the White Wolf. So again, in Warhammer, with it being such a dangerous place, it is kind of lucky that all their insane people have got, sort of a way to vent their insanity, and that's usually stamping out chaos, which in times of war is fantastic. In other times it's a little less fantastic because, they're just going to go, oh, you've got, I don't know, a mole on your face, that's your sure sign of chaos, let's lynch you. Crazy people are crazy. But in times of war, when there's an obvious enemy, with their gods being all about rooting out chaos and defending humanity, it does make these people very useful. So again, that's another great tool that they have, that Middenheim has, in order to defend itself. Just throw a load of zealots at the enemy, which is great fun. So it's pretty cool. But then also, there is also, because it's Warhammer, obviously, right, wizards. So the head of the Guild of Wizards and Alchemists is titled High Wizard of Middenheim, and in addition to his duties as Guild Master, he advises the Graf on magical affairs, and assists the Midden Marshals in maintaining the city's magical defences. In time of war, the High Wizard liaises with the Midden Marshals to provide magical support for the city's military forces. The High Wizard is currently out of the city, along with most of the guild members who have any ability with offensive spells. A few remain behind to assist Commander Schutzman and the City Watch in maintaining order and restoring the city's defences. They are under the command of Deputy High Wizard Jana Eberhauer. So this next part I'm going to read may not seem entirely relevant, given the fact that Storm of Chaos hasn't happened, but I'm going to sort of dissect it as I go, sort of point out things that would be normal, right? Well, you'll see what I mean when I get there. So anyway, the city of Middenheim. The flattened top of the Fullschlag, where Middenheim stands, is about a mile across. The city's walls extend the nearly vertical cliffs upward, and completely enclose the city. Middenheim at present is something of a paradox. It is both more crowded and less busy than usual. The crowding is because of the large numbers of refugees who sought refuge behind its walls as the forces of chaos approached. Those who can are staying with relatives. The others crowd into the city's inns if they have the means, or sleep rough, or in makeshift shanties if they do not. And yet, despite this increase in population, Middenheim moves more slowly than it did before the siege. The main reason for this is that the Graf, along with most of the male nobility and the standing army, is away scouring the remnants of Archaon's forces from the land. Along with him have gone the Night Panther, High Priest Ulric, along with the Knights of the White Wolf, and the elite Teutoden Guard, and many of the city's most powerful wizards. The Graf has appointed the commander of the City Watch to keep the peace and rule in his absence, and the others have handed their business over to deputies, but little is being done in their absence, apart from efforts to repair the damage wrought by the siege. There is a definite feeling that life is not yet back to normal, and will only be once the Graf and their army return. Fresh food is scarce with so many farmers still in the city, and their farms devastated by Archaon and his followers. No one knows what kind of a harvest, if any, will be brought in from the farms and fields of Middenland this year, or how the people will survive the winter with no food stored up. Perhaps Lord Ulric will be merciful this year, holding back his frost from the crops and his wolves from the flocks. He surely knows that his people what his people have suffered. So, you might think, well, that's not entirely relevant. But actually, it kind of is, because it points out again, all the farmers are coming from the country, right? To be refugees here. And that kind of points out that there is a lot of farmland and stuff, but then, given that Warhammer, the world of malice, is so dangerous, the idea that if trouble, arises, the farmers just get out of Dodge, and they just hide behind the walls of a bigger city. That just sort of points out the way that people operate. And I think that's important to know, because it's very easy to think, well, everyone's just cooped up in a big city. How does anyone get fed? But that's because people flee to these cities when they need to. And I think that's very important to point out. So that's kind of novel. So not a lot is being done at the moment, but they are trying to rebuild things, such as the causeways and gates, which I've got a little entry about them as well. So which is a massive defence of Middenheim is the gates and the causeways. They've got the big walls. I mean, yeah, they're halfway up a mountain, but once you climb a mountain, you've got walls to deal with too. It's not it's it's not an uphill battle. It's an up mountain battle with added walls. I don't know where I'm going with this. Anyway, I'm going to read now. So, 4 great... Sorry, I said 3 earlier. 4 great causeways approach Middenheim, each leading to a fortified gate. All are enchanted so that they can be collapsed to prevent attackers from reaching the gates. So that's pretty damn cool. All 4 causeways are intact, although the eastern causeway is heavily damaged and has been closed until repairs can be made. On the second day of the siege, Archaon's forces attacked the eastern causeway, and the magics were triggered to collapse it. However, the sorcerers accompanying the Lord of the End Times responded quickly with spells of their own. Unearthly vines of metal, barbed with stone thorns, erupted from the ground, binding the shattered causeway together. These unnatural bonds will support the causeway, and the city's priests are working together with the dwarven architects and masons to remove them and repair the causeway. Sounds pretty scary. But as you can see, where Archaon failed, I succeeded. We've taken Middenheim, which is great. So now we have Midland under control, which is really good. But we will be, sat around here trying to rebuild a lot of it, as these guys have had to do after Archaon's invasion, which hasn't happened because it's a different timeline, I suppose. Anyway, we'll be rebuilding for a while, so it gives us more of a chance to talk about the different sort of districts and things. But one thing I do want to talk about, because we have mentioned it quite a lot, is I want to talk about the Temple of Ulrich, because that's kind of a big deal. So we'll talk about that, I think, to sort of finish off the Ulrich stuff. And in the next episode we can get on to sort of, the palace and the different sort of markets and, some cool little places of interest. Try and give a better idea of how the people live, in this place generally. I think that's probably the best way to do it, because now you've heard about all the stuff that could be rallied to defend the place. I think now you kind of want to know who they're defending, right? Otherwise, how do you know what it's like to live there? And that's kind of what I want to show you guys. So let's get to it again. So we're going to talk about Ulriksmund, which is a district in the city, and that's obviously where the temple is. So Ulriksmund is a middle-class district lying between the Great Park and the Nordgarten district, to the south of the square of Marshals. It derives its name from the fact that the great Temple of Ulrich, the centre of Ulric's worship throughout the Empire, lies at its southwestern corner. Although less grand than the homes of the Grafsmund and Nordgarten, which are 2 actually mentioned earlier in this book, but we'll get to them. The houses in Ulriksmund are still spacious and comfortable. They are occupied mainly by the second rank of the city's merchants and the wealthier artisans, although some priests of Ulric also live here to be close to the temple. The neighbourhood survived the siege almost untouched, apart from some damage to a few houses on the temple barn. A Chaos Dragon was brought down here by bolt throwers stationed in the Great Park, and the wounded beast wrought havoc for a few minutes before defenders could arrive to dispatch it. So as you could probably see there in the campaign, I wasn't sure whether to vassalize them or not, because I didn't want to lose Boris Todbringer, really. So I wasn't quite sure what to do there, because he wouldn't have wanted to confederate with me. So it was a tough call, but I decided to take it for myself, because, yeah, Boris was being naughty. So I might make a lord and call him Boris later. I know it won't be Boris, but we can pretend, right? So anyway, there's a Black Plague memorial here. This great bronze statue stands facing the Temple of Ulrich, in the busy crossroads made by two of Middenheim's major thoroughfares, the West Weg and the Sudetenweg. It depicts a Tibetan Weg? Anyway, it depicts a tall, well-built man holding a child on each shoulder. He wears a crowned helm and his expression is one of noble gravity. Beneath his feet he crushes a large and evil-looking rat, its head lolling from a snapped neck. The statue depicts Graf Gunther, who ruled the city during the Black Plague of 1111. By giving orders to seal the city gates and kill anyone who tried to enter, he saved Middenheim while thousands perished in the surrounding countryside. Food ran low during the 6 months of self-imposed quarantine, and hundreds of Middenheimers starved, but the city was saved from the plague. In the aftermath of the siege, there is talk of erecting a second statue, this one to commemorate the heroic Middenheimers and their allies who died during defending the city from the onslaught of chaos. An official public subscription for the proposed memorial has yet to be opened, but that has not stopped several enterprising, and dishonest, Middenheimers going door-to-door collecting donations for the siege memorial. So, yeah, just like in the real world, some people are dicks. So, that's also, I think that's also good to know. But what I find novel is, so Middenheim got saved during the Black Plague, but of course that was basically that was the wars against the Skaven that, most people have forgotten about. So, I think that's rather novel, the fact that, they do have a shrine to that, and people just think like, oh, good we stopped that plague. But they weren't necessarily stopping a plague, they were stopping the Skaven. So, yeah, for all we know, they were under siege for all that time, and they just think they were in quarantine, It's pretty foreboding. Anyway, so now, the Temple of Ulrich. So, a blend of castle and cathedral. The great Temple of Ulrich is arguably Middenheim's most famous building. Pilgrims come to the city from all over the Empire, as well as the northern lands beyond, where the god of wolves and winter is venerated. It remains to be seen what effect the widespread destruction of these lands by Archaon and his allies will have on the pilgrimage trade in the future. I reckon a lot of people are going to be, double down on Ulrich after seeing how terrible chaos really is, isn't it? But anyway, the focal point of the temple is the sacred flame of Ulrich. According to tradition, the fire was struck by Ulrich himself. He appeared in a vision to Vulcan, the first high priest and son of Middenheim's founder, the Teutogen chief Arthur. So Arthur, I'm thinking King Arthur, maybe? Anyway. But also sort of not, because I guess that's Bretonia's thing, isn't it? The King Arthur thing. But anyway, so his name's Arthur. Towering over the city, he smote the rock with the iron-shot haft of his great war axe, Blitzbiel, and the silver-white flame sprang into existence. The god prophesied that so long as his sacred flame continued to burn, the city and its people would endure. Awaking from the vision to find the flame leaping from the rock before him, Vulcan, or Vulcan, maybe? W's could be pronounced as V sometimes, right? So, maybe Vulcan, which is novel, seeing as how they're on a big mountain, sort of a whole volcano kind of vibe. Anyway, or just the god Vulcan, I guess. Who's a god of war? Or was that Mars? Ooh, we're gonna look that up. Okay, yes, so he became the god of volcanoes. Once they existed, I think it was Pompeii. They went, oh, this is volcanic. There's a great bit in Doctor Who that, pointed out that. Weirdly, by Peter Capaldi before he was actually the Doctor. Which is, anyway, I got sidetracked. You don't want to hear about that. So, but no, Vulcan actually is the. He's the god of fire, right? So that's kind of awesome because Vulcan, was given custody of that flame. So that's really cool, isn't it? Do you love that sort of influence there with his name? Anyway, I do really like etymology and stuff in this game, and in Warhammer. You know, it's really cool. It's prominent everywhere. There's so much stuff you can read into, and there's a reason for almost every name. And that's just one that seems a bit more obvious. So anyway, Vulcan wasted no time in starting construction of Ulric's temple on that spot. The vaulted roof of the temple stands 120 feet high, and is held up purely by the perfection of its architectural design, with no magical assistance. It gives the temple stunning acoustics, which allow a preacher in the pulpit to be heard by the entire congregation, without having to raise his voice. The temple can hold up to 1,000 worshippers at a time. Around the temple has grown up a complex of buildings, including accommodation for the senior priests, private chapels maintained by some of the city's wealthier families, the official archives of the cult of Ulric, and various other support functions. These rooms occupy most of the eastern half of the temple, complex, along with the 10-story Great Tower that joins them to the main temple. The temple also boasts several lesser towers. So, obviously I've run out of VT here, so you're looking at a picture of something. But I want to just talk about the Sacred Flame, before we move on. Before we end the episode. So, the Sacred Flame. So, many legends surround the Sacred Flame of Ulric. As mentioned already, the god himself is said to have guaranteed that the city and its people would endure as long as the flame still burned. Another popular superstition is that the flame will not harm a true follower of Ulric. This is most famously recorded in the story of Magnus the Pious in the Year of Shaming. With the empire divided both by religion and by ambitions of rival claimants to the throne, the Sigmarite noble Magnus of Nuln came to Middenheim in secret to confront Ulrican claims that the religion of Sigmar was at best a heresy and at worst chaos-inspired. As the High Priest of Ulric was denouncing him from the pulpit, so the story goes, the young Magnus rose from among the congregation, throwing off his cloak to reveal his identity. "If I am a blasphemer," he said calmly, "then the fire of Ulric will surely consume me." Shrugging off his cloak, he walked into the flame with an unwavering step, and turned to face his accuser. The flame would not burn him, and those present dropped to their knees, recognizing that this youth was highly favoured by their god. Although suspected heretics were occasionally subjected to the trial of the flame in past centuries, today the temple authorities strongly discourage anyone from testing the favour of Ulric by walking into the flame. Every year, though, especially during the winter pilgrimage season, a few people try. Most suffer injury as a result, but sharp-eyed priests pull nearly all of them from the sacred flame before they can be too badly hurt. There have been no reported miracles for more than a generation. So alright guys, that I think sort of finishes it off. So, obviously in the next video we're going to be talking about, Middenheim more, because the place is massive, and it's got a load of little, places of interest. So I want to go over some of that, talk about some of the other, districts. And, hopefully be able to, piece a few things together, sort of work out what it's like to live here. So, it should be quite fun, hopefully. So, guys, if you enjoyed this video, as always, please do comment, like, and subscribe. And, thank you to everyone who has subscribed. I just hit 60 subs, which I'm pretty happy about. And, so I'm pretty thrilled. So, thanks, guys. So, I will see you all in the next video. Have a good one, guys.